Hey, Sip&Talkers, welcome back. Grab your drink, settle in. I'm Joe.
And I'm Sunny. It's great to be with you all again. I'm ready for another chat.
Absolutely. And we've got some really interesting stuff today, actually. Stuff listeners sent in, a lot focusing on Taiwan. It really highlights this tightrope walk democracies everywhere are facing.
Oh, yeah. What's the specific angle?
It's that classic dilemma.
Yeah.
Freedom of speech versus, well, freedom to just make stuff up, freedom to deceive.
Yes. That line, it's always blurry, isn't it? So what kicked this off?
So there's this recent case, pretty high profile over there, an online personality, an influencer type, spreads this totally wild story, claiming Taiwan's vice president, Xiaobi Kim, paid, get this, 80 billion euros.
80 billion, with a B euros. For what?
Just to get a speaking slot at some big international summit. I mean, the number itself is just astronomical, designed to shock.
Wow. Okay, yeah, that's definitely inflammatory. So what happened?
Well, here's the kicker. This person, apparently a supporter of the Taiwan People's Party, the media started calling them a little grass supporter. We'll get into that term later. They fly back into Taiwan from Tokyo, and boom, police are right there waiting at the airport.
Really? They intercepted him?
Yep, pulled aside, questioned. And his response to the reporters who were there, just super casual. He's like, oh, it was just satire. I thought it was funny.
Uh-huh. The classic defense.
Exactly. Then he hits them with, why am I being arrested? Yeah. Is there no free speech in Taiwan anymore?
Oh, that old chestnut. Using free speech as a shield after spreading something that sounds deliberately false. Yeah, that's why this stuff is so tricky.
Right. And we've talked before about how Beijing isn't exactly a fan of Xiaobi Kim's diplomatic work. Mm-hmm. So seeing this kind of fake news pop up internally, it feels connected somehow.
It definitely raises questions. It forces that confrontation, doesn't it? When does political venting or even a really bad joke cross the line into something damaging, something that actually undermines public trust or stability?
Totally. So that's our plan for today, folks. We're going to use this case, this little grass incident, as a starting point.
Okay.
We'll dig into how Taiwan legally defines that line. Mm-hmm. What are the actual penalties? Why did the government jump on this so fast? And crucially, how does the law tell the difference between an opinion, which is protected, and a false fact, which maybe isn't?
And we really need to dive into that gray area he tried to hide in, right?
Yeah.
I just reposted it, or it was irony, or I was just kidding, defense. Because how do democracies handle that? Is it just about negligence, like, oops, I didn't check my source? Or is it about malice, knowing it's false and spreading it anyway? Especially with something so potentially damaging.
That ambiguity.
Yeah.
I feel like the perfect breeding ground for, hypocrisy and opportunism, people using the idea of free speech for other motives.
Exactly. And this isn't just a Taiwan problem, right? I mean, look, globally.
For sure. You've got the EU bringing in the Digital Services Act, the DSA, trying to make platforms more responsible for the junk that spreads on them.
Right. Making the platforms deal with systemic risks.
But then here in the U.S., our First Amendment is so broad, the government basically can't touch most false speech. So all the pressure falls on who?
Yeah.
Facebook, Twitter, TikTok.
Which opens up a whole other can of worms about private companies being the arbiters of truth. Yeah. It's a mess.
It really is. Every democracy seems to be wrestling with this. How do you stop disinformation campaigns, maybe even foreign interference, without accidentally building a censorship machine that crushes legitimate debate?
It's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Protecting openness without letting it be destroyed from within.
Okay, so let's set the stage properly. For listeners who might not follow Taiwanese politics closely, what's the deal with this term little grass or xiaokao? Why is that loaded?
Right, good question. So xiaokao, literally little grass, became this kind of affectionate nickname that supporters of the Taiwan People's Party, or TPP, started using for themselves, especially around the 2024 election.
Oh, okay, so it's like a self-identifier for that political group.
Exactly. So when the news reports identify the guy spreading the rumor as a little grass supporter, it immediately frames the whole thing politically. It's not just some random troll online. It's positioned as, an attack coming from a specific anti-government camp. Very charged.
Got it. So political context is key. And we're going to use this xiaokao case, but also bring in a couple of others that are just, wow, really revealing.
Oh, like what?
We'll look at the American streamer Hassan Piker. The whole socialist revolutionary in the U.S., quiet as a mouse in China thing.
Ah, yes. That trip was something else. The double standards were stark.
And then domestically in Taiwan, the influencer known as Curator Chen Chihan, his political shifts seem Very strategically timed.
The curator, yeah, his trajectory is fascinating. Always seems to land where the attention or the money is loudest.
Precisely. And what ties these three together, despite totally different styles in politics, is this theme of, well, it feels like traffic over truth.
Chasing clicks, chasing engagement, even if it means bending reality or being hypocritical.
And how that behavior, that opportunism, just feeds right into the hands of, say, external cognitive warfare campaigns, especially those aimed at Taiwan from places like Beijing.
It's a dangerous synergy. The individual motive might be clicks or fame, but the outcome can be destabilizing for the whole society.
So beyond the law, beyond the politics, we also got to talk about what we can do, what you, listening right now, can do. This idea of media immunity.
Yes. Building up our own mental defenses, that critical thinking toolkit.
It's about developing that habit, right?
Yeah.
Checking sources, asking why someone is pushing a certain message, recognizing that even if you think you're just sharing a funny meme or venting, the downstream effect of spreading lies is real. It corrodes trust.
It really does. Because if we can't agree on basic facts, how can democracy even function? The whole system relies on some level of shared reality.
It feels like the foundation.
Right.
If that crumbles, the whole democratic house is shaky. All right, let's get into it. This is going to be a good one. Okay, section 1. Let's really dissect this little grass case. How did this specific piece of fake news operate, and where exactly does Taiwan draw the legal line?
All right, so the whole thing starts with something real and positive for Taiwan. Vice President Hsiao Bi-khim gives this speech at the Interparliamentary Alliance on China, or IPAC, summit. This was in Belgium, November 7th, 2025.
And any international stage for Taiwan's leaders is a big deal, right? Because Beijing actively tries to shut that down.
Exactly. It was a diplomatic win. But almost instantly, this counter-narrative pops up online, primarily on Threads, it seems.
And it wasn't just a critique. It was this specific outrageous claim.
Right. The claim. Taiwan secretly donated 80 billion euros in exchange for that speaking spot, a bribe, essentially. That number, 80 billion, is just plucked from thin air, designed purely for shock value.
It's unbelievable on its face, but they tried to make it look legit.
Oh, yeah. And this is important for the legal side later. The Post didn't just say it. It included AI-generated fake images, trying to add that visual proof.
The deep fake element. Or shallow fake, maybe?
Right. And they cited a source. Get this. The French BBC.
The French BBC. That's not a thing, is it?
Not even remotely a thing. It's laughably fake. But it tells you two things. One, they put effort into the deception, creating images, inventing a source. Two, they're counting on people scrolling fast, seeing BBC, and not stopping to think, wait, French BBC?
It's that perfect storm for misinformation. Big shocking number, a visual element, a source name that sounds vaguely official if you don't think too hard.
Exactly. And the emotional reaction, outrage, anger kicks in before the critical thinking does. It instantly poisons the narrative. Instead of Taiwan gains recognition, it becomes Taiwan wastes insane amounts of money corruptly.
So how did the Taiwanese government handle it? Did they just ignore it as obviously fake?
No, absolutely not. They know how fast this stuff spreads. The president's office, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they came out immediately, publicly, forcefully, called it maliciously fabricated and entirely baseless.
Standard denial. But did they do more?
Yes. Crucially, they filed a police report. They initiated legal action right away. This wasn't just PR. It was about establishing a legal record that this was damaging falsehood, intended to disrupt public order and harm the national image.
That speed is key in fighting this stuff, isn't it? Get the truth out fast.
You have to. Disinformation travels at the speed of light. The official correction needs to be just as quick or faster. And the police acted quickly, too. They followed the digital breadcrumbs, identified the poster, this Mr. Chen, and nabbed him when he landed back at the airport from Tokyo.
Which leads us back to his defense. Just satire, no free speech. Trying to wrap himself in the flag of liberty after lobbing a Molotov cocktail of lies.
Precisely. And that forces us to look at Taiwan's actual laws. How do they handle this? Is speech totally unlimited there?
Let's get specific. What does the law say?
Okay, so first principles. Taiwan's constitution, Article 11, absolutely guarantees freedom of speech. It's a hard-won right, foundational to their democracy. But, and this is vital, it's not absolute. No democracy treats it as absolute.
Right, there are always limits. Like you can't yell fire in a crowded theater if there's no fire.
Exactly. The Constitution itself, in Article 23, says freedoms can be limited by law if it's necessary to prevent infringement on the freedoms of others, think reputation, privacy, or to maintain social order or public welfare.
Standard stuff for a functioning democracy.
Yeah.
Protecting the community from harm caused by speech.
And Taiwan also incorporates principles from international covenants like the ICCPR, which recognize that expression carries duties and responsibilities, including respecting others' rights and protecting national security or public order.
Okay, so the principle of limits exists. What specific law did they use against Mr. Chen? Was it like criminal libel?
No, and this is really important. They primarily used the Social Order Maintenance Act, or SOMA. In Mandarin, it's Shehui Zikui Wehu Faf Dehua, specifically Article 63, Paragraph 1, Item 5.
Social Order Maintenance Act. Sounds broad.
It covers a range of minor offenses that disturb public peace. But the key here is that penalties under SOMA are generally administrative penalties, 行政法, not criminal convictions.
Ah, okay. Why go the administrative route instead of criminal?
Speed and focus. SOMA is designed as a quicker tool to handle things that disrupt public tranquility now. Think of it like a legal first responder. They're not trying to prove complex criminal intent for libel, which can take years and requires a really high burden of proof.
So it's more about stopping the immediate harm.
Exactly. This specific article targets the act of disseminating rumors that are sufficient to affect public peace and tranquility. The penalty is usually a fine up to NT $30,000, which is roughly $1,000 or detention for up to 3 days. It's meant as a swift deterrent.
Efficient. So it targets the impact of the speech, more than the speaker's deep political motives.
Largely, yes. The focus is on whether the falsehood could reasonably cause public anxiety or disorder. And the definition of rumor is critical here. It has to be a false statement or a fabricated fact, something demonstrably untrue.
So, again, saying this policy is bad is okay. That's opinion.
Protected.
But saying the VP paid an €80 billion bribe for a speech, if false, crosses the line into a potentially punishable false fact.
That's the distinction the law tries to make. It targets the fabrication itself when that fabrication poses a risk to public peace. Now, about that satire or joke defense.
Yeah, how do the courts see through that? Because anyone can claim they were just kidding.
Right. The courts don't just take the person's word for it. They apply a kind of objective test, looking at typically 3 key things.
Okay, lay them out for us. How do they evaluate the it's just satire claim?
First, content falseness. Is the core statement objectively untrue? In this case, the Foreign Ministry easily proved no €80 billion donation happened. Check 1.
Simple enough. Verifiably false.
Second, subjective state or malice negligence. This is where it gets nuanced. Was the person merely negligent, like they saw it somewhere and carelessly reposted without checking? Or was there evidence of intent to deceive or at least reckless disregard for the truth?
Now, how do they judge that?
They look at the actions taken. Did the person create the lie? Did they use tools like AI image generation? Did they invent a fake source like the French BBC? The more effort put into making the lie believable, the harder it is to argue it was just a harmless joke or simple carelessness. It points towards malicious intent or, at the very least, gross negligence.
The effort exposes the intent. If you're building a fake reality, you're not just kidding around.
Precisely. It undermines the satire claim if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck. And the third standard, directly tied to SOMA, is impact. Did this specific falsehood have the potential to cause public anxiety, disrupt social order, or seriously damage public trust?
And claiming the government is throwing away billions in bribes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems likely to cause anxiety and distrust.
Absolutely. It hits right at the heart of government legitimacy and public finances. So it easily meets that threshold of being sufficient to affect public peace.
So pulling it all together, Taiwan's system isn't about silencing criticism. It's about having a relatively fast legal tool to push back against fabricated facts that are deliberately spread and pose a real risk to public stability. Free speech? Yes, but not a free pass to lie consequence-free when it causes harm.
That's the balance they're trying to strike. It's reactive, focused on demonstrable falsehoods and their impact.
Okay, so that's Taiwan's approach, this quick response administrative penalty via SOMA. It's very specific. How does that stack up against how, say, the US or Europe handles this? Because the philosophies seem worlds apart.
Oh, completely different worlds. Let's start with the U.S.
Yeah, the land of the free speech absolutists, almost.
Pretty much. The First Amendment provides incredibly broad protection for speech, especially political speech. The core idea is that the government should stay out of regulating content as much as humanly possible, even if that content is false.
The marketplace of ideas concept, right? Let good ideas and bad ideas battle it out, and truth will eventually win.
That's the theory. And because of this super high protection for speech, the government has almost no power to prosecute someone for spreading political misinformation unless it crosses very specific lines like direct incitement to violence or defamation with actual malice.
So who does fight disinformation in the U.S. then?
It falls almost entirely on the shoulders of private tech platforms: Facebook, Google, Twitter X, TikTok. They're the ones doing content moderation, applying labels, sometimes taking things down. It's self-regulation, basically.
Which, of course, leads to endless arguments about bias, censorship, platforms playing God.
Exactly. It's a huge controversy. But legally, why is it so hard for the U.S. government to act like Taiwan did in the Xiaoqiao case? The key is a landmark Supreme Court case from 1964, New York Times, v. Sullivan.
The actual malice standard.
Bingo. To win a defamation case involving a public figure, you have to prove the speaker knew the statement was false or acted with reckless disregard for whether it was true or false.
That's a notoriously high bar. You basically need mind-reading powers to prove someone knew they were lying when they said it politically.
It's almost impossible for the government to meet that standard for prosecuting political speech. So the upside is maximum protection for debate, even fierce, ugly debate, free from government chilling effects. The downside: we're potentially drowning in unchecked, sophisticated disinformation with very little government recourse.
So we trade safety for freedom, in a way, and we end up with these giant tech companies as reluctant and often criticized gatekeepers.
That's the American paradox. Now compare that to Europe.
Right. The EU took a totally different path with the Digital Services Act, the DSA.
Yeah, the EU looked at the situation and said, okay, relying on platforms' goodwill isn't working, and prosecuting individual users is hard, and maybe not the most effective way. So the DSA focuses on the systems of the big players, the very large online platforms, or VLOPs.
VLOPs, that's platforms with, 45 million users in the EU?
That's the threshold. And these VLOPs have serious obligations under the DSA. It's not just about taking down individual posts. They have to conduct annual systemic risk assessment.
Systemic risk, what does that mean in practice?
They have to analyze how their entire system, their algorithms, their recommendation engines, their ad systems might be contributing to societal harms. This includes spreading disinformation, election interference, cognitive warfare, things that damage democratic processes.
Wow. So Brussels is telling Meta and Google, prove your algorithms aren't actively messing up our democracies.
Essentially, yes, and they have to show their work. But the DSA also tries really hard to do this without becoming a censorship law. It's a balancing act.
How do they build in protections for free speech within the DSA itself?
Through several key mechanisms. First, transparency. VLOPs have to be much more open about how their algorithms work. How is content promoted? How is it moderated? How does targeted advertising function? This allows researchers, regulators, and the public to see if there are systemic biases, like maybe pushing state-sponsored propaganda during an election.
Opening the black box, basically.
Kind of. Second, user rights and redress. This is huge. If a platform takes down your content, they can't just say violated community standards. They have to give you a clear, specific reason, citing the rule or law. And you have the right to appeal, both internally and through external dispute settlement bodies. It's a real right to rebuttal.
That sounds way more robust than the appeals process on most platforms now.
It's a significant step up. And third, maybe the most important safeguard against turning into Big Brother, the no general monitoring rule. The DSA explicitly forbids requiring platforms to constantly preemptively monitor all user content.
Okay, so they can't just vacuum up and scan everything everyone posts ahead of time.
Yeah.
That maintains a level of privacy and prevents it from becoming a total surveillance system.
Exactly. It keeps the focus on mitigating systemic risks and providing transparency and redress rather than having the government or the platform police every single utterance.
So it's fascinating. You've got the U.S., protect the speaker at almost all costs. Rely on platforms and courts for extreme cases. Taiwan, use fast administrative law against individuals spreading harmful falsehoods to protect public order. And the EU regulate the systems of the big platforms to reduce the overall risk of disinformation, while building in transparency and user rights.
3 different democracies, 3 very different answers to the same fundamental problem.
Okay, we've talked law, we've talked systems. Now let's get into the messy human part, the ethics, the motives, the hypocrisy, how public figures use the idea of free speech when it suits them.
Right. Moving from the legal lines to the calculations people make. Because it was satire defense, often feels less like a genuine belief and more like an escape hatch.
Let's revisit the Xiaocao case through that lens. What was the likely real driver behind spreading that 80 billion euro lie?
Well, beyond the claimed humor, you have to look at the dynamics of the internet attention economy.
Clicks, engagement, outrage.
Exactly. Digital traffic. Extreme claims, especially attacking high-profile political opponents, generate massive engagement. It gets shares, comments, eyeballs. That's the primary currency online.
So motive 1, get attention. What else?
Political ventilation seems likely too. A way to lash out at the ruling party, the DPP, maybe express frustration or anger in a really loud, damaging way.
But regardless of his personal feelings or whether he just wanted clicks, what was the actual effect of his actions?
The objective consequence is undeniable. Whether he intended it or not, his actions perfectly align with the goals of external cognitive warfare campaigns against Taiwan.
How so?
He manufactured internal conflict. He sowed distrust in the government's diplomatic efforts and financial management. He weakened public confidence. Even if he wasn't taking orders from anyone, he effectively did the work of those trying to destabilize Taiwan from the outside. His Free Speech Act objectively caused harm.
He became an unwitting or maybe witting, who knows, tool.
Yeah.
Okay, let's pivot to case study number 2. Hasan Piker, the American streamer. This one is just a journey.
Oh, Hasan Piker, yes. Built this enormous online following, millions of followers, primarily on a platform of very strong, very vocal left-wing anti-establishment, often explicitly socialist or communist rhetoric.
His brand in the U.S. is all about challenging authority, right? Mm-hmm. Fearless truth teller, calls out injustice, especially police brutality, military spending.
Absolutely. Uses very confrontational language, things like ACE, all cops are bastards, very critical of U.S. institutions. He thrives on that image of the political firebrand.
But then he goes to China on a trip that looked pretty officially sanctioned.
That's the key. This wasn't just backpacking. He got special access coverage from state media like CGTN. It looked very much like he was being presented or used as a friendly Western voice, what some might call a Yang Wu Mao, a foreigner promoting the CCP narrative abroad.
And for him, presumably this meant huge exposure, massive traffic, maybe special treatment.
You'd have to assume the benefits was significant, access, content, potentially a new audience. But then came the moment of truth near Tiananmen Square.
Ah, yes, the Tiananmen incident. What exactly happened there?
He was live streaming, and apparently someone in his group used AI to put his face onto an image related to Chairman Mao. Now, any imagery related to Mao, especially near Tiananmen, is incredibly sensitive politically in China.
So the authorities noticed.
They did. Security forces intervene, and this is where the brand clashed violently with reality.
What happened to the guy who says F the police in America?
The contrast was something. According to reports and the stream itself before it cut out, when confronted by actual Chinese state security operating with far fewer constraints than U.S. police, his confrontational style vanished.
Completely.
Reports described him as muting his mic, becoming extremely submissive, almost cowering. Afterwards, his explanation wasn't about defending free expression or standing up to authority. It was all weak justifications about cultural differences and misunderstandings.
So the revolutionary rhetoric holds up fine against police in a democracy where he has rights.
But evaporates instantly when faced with authoritarian police where his safety, freedom, and maybe his lucrative trip are genuinely on the line. It exposed a stark double standard based entirely on personal risk and benefit.
It really undermines the principled stand image.
Hugely. And there's another layer of irony, too. During that same China trip, Piker, the self-proclaimed communist, showed a pretty basic lack of understanding about Chinese communist ideology itself.
How so?
There was this moment discussing the Chinese flag. He and his companions seemed genuinely confused about what the 4 smaller stars represent, speculating maybe it was about small capitalism or different regions.
Which is way off, right? The official meaning is about the classes led by the party workers, peasants, urban petty bourgeoisie, and national bourgeoisie.
Exactly. It suggested his engagement with the ideology might be more performative, more about the Western brand, than a deep, consistent understanding or conviction he's willing to defend under pressure. His free speech seemed very conditional.
Conditional on comfort, safety, and clicks. Okay, case 3. Let's bring it back to Taiwan with the curator, Chen Shihan. He's less about a specific ideology and more about shifting positions.
Yeah, the curator is kind of the ultimate example of the political chameleon or opportunist. He doesn't seem anchored to a fixed ideology like Piker claims to be. Instead, his public stance seems to pivot strategically based on what maximizes his business interests and online influence at that moment.
So what are the main pivots we see?
His history shows these swings. There have been phases where he was perceived as quite pro-Beijing, using rhetoric that appealed to that side, sometimes framed as licking the CCP. There were statements like, I am Chinese.
And the presumed goal there was?
Likely tapping into the mainland Chinese market or appealing to a specific pro-unification demographic within Taiwan to expand his business ventures, gyms, apparel, whatever he was selling. Pure commercial calculation.
But then the wind changes.
And he can swing hard the other way, becoming one of the most vocal, aggressive critics of the ruling Green Party, the DPP. This keeps him incredibly relevant, generates massive engagement, and solidifies his sales among the large anti-DPP segment of the Taiwanese audience.
So he plays both sides against the middle, depending on the market opportunity.
It certainly looks that way. His political identity seems less about core beliefs and more like a marketing variable. He adjusts to maximize reach and revenue in different contexts. If outrage against the government sells today, he provides it. If a pro-China stance seemed profitable yesterday, he provided that.
It's pure transactional politics almost.
And if you tie all three together, the Shao Kao guy hiding behind satire, Piker's selective bravery, and the curator's market-driven politics, what emerges is this pattern of opportunism.
Yeah.
They use the language of free speech or political principle, but their actions suggest the real drivers are often attention, profit, and avoiding accountability. They're weaponizing discourse for personal gain.
And the really scary part is how these individual acts of opportunism, maybe just driven by clicks or cash, plug directly into a much bigger, more dangerous game, information warfare.
Exactly. We can't look at these things in a vacuum, especially in a place like Taiwan, which is constantly under the microscope, constantly targeted by influence operations.
Primarily from China, right? The
Yeah.
DCCP's United Front work.
That's the main external actor, yes. Their documented strategy involves using information campaigns alongside other tactics to achieve specific goals within Taiwan.
And what are those goals? Typically, is it just about getting a specific party elected?
It's much broader and more insidious than just picking winners. The systemic goal is often to manufacture social conflict, to deepen existing divisions, create new ones, to erode trust in the government, trust in democratic institutions like elections or the media, trust in Taiwan's international partners.
Make democracy itself look chaotic and unreliable.
Precisely. Degrade the legitimacy of the current government, whoever it is, if they're not Beijing-friendly, and ultimately soften the ground, make the population more receptive to narratives that favor unification or closer ties with China under Beijing's terms.
It sounds a bit like the Russian playbook we've seen used against the U.S. and Europe, but maybe with a more specific long-term geopolitical objective.
There are definite similarities. Russian campaigns, like around the 2016 U.S. election or Brexit, often seem designed to maximize polarization, to make societies so divided, so angry, that they become almost ungovernable. The goal is to destroy any shared consensus on reality, on basic facts.
Chaos as an end in itself, almost. Whereas the CCP's efforts against Taiwan seem more focused on that specific reunification goal.
It seems that way. The polarization is a tool, but the strategic objective is clear. Undermine Taiwan's separate identity and democratic resilience. When a lie like the 80 billion euro bribe can spread like wildfire and be believed by a significant chunk of the population, well, the CCP doesn't need missiles if they can achieve paralysis through doubt and division.
So why do these tactics work so well? Why is the outrageous lie often stickier than the boring truth?
It's the nature of our digital environment, isn't it? We're caught in the traffic trap.
Explain that.
Cognitive warfare strategists know exactly how our online platforms work, what gets the most engagement. Extreme emotions. Anger, fear, outrage, highly controversial topics, exaggerated claims. Whether they're true or false is almost irrelevant to the algorithm.
The algorithm rewards the flame war.
Exactly. Content that provokes a strong reaction gets more clicks, more shares, more comments. It gets amplified. So spreading lies or extreme distortions is often the most effective way to get attention online. We are essentially optimizing our information ecosystem for manipulation.
We're rewarding the behavior that harms us.
Pretty much. And when people see public figures constantly flip-flopping, like Piker or the curator, or using flimsy excuses like the Xiaokou guy, what does that teach the audience?
That principles are flexible. That maybe everyone is just performing.
It breeds cynicism. It destroys trust, not just in those individuals, but potentially in all political speech. If the loudest voices are hypocrites, maybe everyone is lying. Maybe the government is always corrupt. Maybe the media can't be trusted. Maybe ideology is just a costume.
That's the real win for disinformation, isn't it? Now, not making you believe one specific lie, but making you so cynical you don't believe anything is true. Total nihilism.
Which is paralyzing for a democracy. If citizens disengage because they think the whole system is rigged and everyone's lying, then democracy can't function. That's why the last line of defense, it has to be us, individual citizens.
We can't just rely on Taiwan's SOMA law or the U.S. First Amendment or the EU's DSA. We have to build our own defenses.
Our own media immunity.
All right, this is the crucial part, the practical takeaway. How do we as individuals navigating this information storm build that immunity? What's the checklist?
It boils down to developing conscious habits. 4 key checks you should try to make almost automatic.
Okay, let's hear them. Number 1.
Stop and question the source. Seriously, before you even react emotionally, before you think about sharing, just pause and ask, who is telling me this?
Is it a reputable news organization? A known expert? Or is it an anonymous account?
Very fishy.
A website I've never heard of, that French BBC.
Exactly. Does the username look like a real person or a bot? If there's a link, does it go where it claims? Does the website look professional or thrown together? Basic source hygiene. Use fact-checking sites. Do a quick reverse image search if a photo looks suspicious. Is it old, Photoshop, AI generated? Just that first step of checking the source can filter out so much junk.
Okay, check the source. What's number 2?
Evaluate credibility and emotion. Look at how the information is presented.
Meaning?
Is the language calm and factual, or is it designed to make you instantly furious or terrified? Does it use loaded words, excessive exclamation points, all caps? Are there actual facts and data presented, or just wild assertions like 80 billion euros?
If it feels like it's deliberately pushing your emotional buttons, be extra skeptical.
Absolutely. And crucially, is anyone else reporting this? Especially credible, established news outlets with different perspectives. If a shocking story only appears on one obscure blog or one partisan Facebook group, that's a massive red flag. Try to cross-reference with at least 2 or 3 diverse, reliable sources. If the mainstream, reputable media isn't touching it, there's probably a good reason.
Good advice. Verify across multiple sources. Number 3.
Identify the motive. This requires a bit more critical thinking. Ask yourself, cui bono? Who benefits if this message spreads and is believed?
Is someone trying to sell me something? Discredit a political opponent? Undermine trust in an institution like science or elections? So division between groups.
Precisely. What's the likely goal behind this message beyond just informing? If the main function seems to be creating conflict, generating anger, or pushing a very specific agenda, then you need to question its underlying truthfulness, regardless of how plausible it sounds on the surface.
Understand the agenda. Okay, and the final check. You said 4.
The last one is the simplest and maybe the most powerful. Slow down. Just pause. Disinformation relies on speed and impulse. It wants you to react instantly, emotionally, without thinking. That share button is designed to be easy to click. The single most effective thing you can do is introduce friction. Take 5 or 10 seconds. Breathe. Reread it. Ask those first 3 questions. That tiny pause can be the difference between stopping a lie and spreading it. It's everything. It allows your rational brain to catch up with your emotional reaction. Freedom of speech comes with responsibility. And in the digital age, that responsibility includes the simple act of pausing to verify before you amplify. Don't be an unwitting vector for garbage.
So wrapping this all up, it feels like the core tension remains. Free speech is absolutely vital for democracy. You need that space for dissent, for criticism, for uncomfortable ideas.
It's non-negotiable. But as we've seen, whether it's Taiwan's SOMA, the EU's DSA, or even the debates around the U.S. First Amendment, democratic societies do draw lines. They recognize that freedom cannot be an absolute shield for deliberate deception, especially when that deception is fabricated, verifiable as false, and designed to damage public order or trust.
The line seems to be between expressing an opinion and asserting a false fact maliciously.
That's often the legal crux. And ethically, beyond the law, We really need to push back against this culture of opportunism, where satire or ideology become convenient masks for chasing clicks and tearing down trust for personal gain.
Because the viral outrage might feel good or get attention in the moment, but the long-term damage to our shared understanding of reality is immense. The slow, boring work of checking facts might not be sexy, but it's essential.
Absolutely. So we've talked legal tools, platform rules, individual cynicism, but here's that final thought for you, our listeners, to chew on.
Lay it on us.
If this trend continues, if more and more public figures find it beneficial to choose temporary influence, viral hits, and strategic exaggeration over long-term credibility and factual accuracy, what's the ultimate cost? Not just politically, but ethically. What does it do to the character of the individuals involved, and what kind of fragmented, cynical public square are we leaving for the next generation?
Oof. Yeah, that's heavy. What happens when truth itself loses all its market value? Definitely something to think about.
Indeed.
All right, that is unfortunately all the time we have for today's Sip and Talk. This was a big one.
It really was. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in and thinking through this with us. If you found this valuable, please do subscribe to Sip and Talk wherever you get your podcasts. It helps others find the show.
And hey, on a completely different note, if you need a palate cleanser after all this serious talk, check out our friend Mickey's YouTube channel. Just search for Mickytolife, M-I-C-K-Y to life. He does awesome vlogs, travel stuff, just fun, positive energy. Go give him a look.
Definitely worth checking out. We'll catch you all in the next one.
See you next time, Sip and Talkers.